I've actually read this guy's diary. Apparently the mayor backed him into a corner, got quite physical with him, and said, "You need to be a police officer, your city needs you, and you can't say no." So he didn't say no, and in a heartbeat he became the second police officer in the city. His first job though as a cop wasn't to rebuild City Hall. I mean, it burnt down, that's why it was an attempt. We did have buildings back in 1886. It wasn't to rebuild the police station or the fire hall, for all of the good the fire hall actually did. His first job as a cop was to jump back into Burrard Inlet where he had just come from and save all of those whiskey barrels before the tide started to wash them away. So that is how important alcohol was to the early city of Vancouver, that they were actually going to send in their newly minted police officer to save this stuff. So right from the beginning you can see there's this funny connection between official Vancouver, so City Hall, the police department, all of these guys, and unofficial Vancouver, right? The business of sin and pleasure and keeping yourself happy drunk, generally all of the time. So that was the way the city started. 128 years ago, 1886. Of course, the city's grown quite a bit since then, but especially in the early days, even today, Vancouver's been a very imperial city. British Columbia, of course, our capital, Victoria. BC is very, very tied in with the British Empire, and when war actually hit in 1914, Vancouverites signed up in bigger droves than any other city in Canada to go off and fight for King of the country. So if you guys look over here, so in 1914, when war broke out in Europe, Vancouver Police Department consisted of, I believe, 47 officers. That being said, you will notice if you look up on the board here that there are 62 faces out of a police force of 47 people that have gone off and signed up to go to war. Now, this comes only from the police department, but Vancouver sent more soldiers off to fight in World War I than any other city in Canada. We were the fourth largest at the time. We were behind Toronto, Montreal, and Winnipeg. So we were the fourth largest city, but we sent the largest number of soldiers to go off and fight. So the city changed very drastically in the war years. Of course, we had an entire generation leave the city more completely than anywhere else. 9 of these 62 police officers that did take a leave of absence or even retire their commission to go off and fight, 9 of the 62 didn't make it back. And when those who did make it back were able to come back to Vancouver, they found out the city was a very different place. The war years were a very difficult time for Vancouver. A lot of unrest, of course, when you have, well, when all the cops go out of town, or when the cats leave town, the mice decide to play, right? So the war years were actually a very dangerous time for Vancouver. Not only were there 9 officers killed having gone off to war, but there were a few officers that actually lost their lives in the line of duty right here. If you guys follow me around the corner. Okay. Now I want to introduce you to these 16 faces that you'll see behind me. Does anyone recognize any of these faces? Have you heard about them? Have you read stories about them?